Oh, yeah. Yeah, this isn't exactly a hotbed of criminal activity. Sorry?
I followed your decision. So all you have to do is hold her shoulder.
And what she was talking about.
But she's good.
That's so good. Are you okay?
Well, no, I've got that covered. I've got that covered. Yeah, that's exciting.
I mean, I don't mind being here.
You're one of the first ones
I'm not sure. Yeah.
It'll only be. I want to make it easy. Yeah.
I had the agenda for a minute and now it's wonky.
All right, let me ask you.
One thing they never
I'm just going back to this. Yeah, it just, this is the third time something like this has happened. And now yes, I killed the king first. In my car and the whole system went white and then just shut down.
Oh, I'm like level high.
You guys don't know where jinx and stuff are.
We're talking about the unit testing system.
Oh, you saw me talking about
The time frame, yeah. I heard you talking about, oh, this should be short, this should be short. Oh.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yep.
Good. You too. Right there. He'll fly.
There you go.
Right?
Hey, Connie. All right.
Hey, good job. How are you?
It's been a day.
Everything is already done. No.
This isn't happening for you today.
No, no, and yesterday was not exactly a breezy.
Made it.
I've got this word.
All day, it was like you said. I'll turn out to touch it, right? I don't know what I did. Right?
Of course.
Doesn't matter how many people you tell, never mind. You can't.
Isn't it weird?
You did what? My contacts as well.
All right, it's back on, huh?
You know,
I wasn't here.
What time is your close? Oh, mine are both. I'm not very, I mean,
Well, then I completely missed it.
Whoops.
yeah, mine are.
Let's call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, April 5th. Today, this is the regular Board of Trustees meeting for Greenmount Falls. All trustees are present except for Chris Quinn. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda as presented?
Not this time.
Board? No. I would move that we approve this agenda and accept it.
I'll second.
With no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Item 3 is the consent agenda, which is the accounts payable for March 12th through April 1st, and the minutes from March 15th Board of Trustees meeting. Does anyone on the board want to bring out an item for discussion? Then I would move approval of the consent agenda.
I will second.
With no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Item 4 is proclamation for National Library Week. Taryn Malila, are you here? If you would like to please approach and just tell us a little bit about this proclamation.
Don't mind pressing that button at the top. Should turn blue.
Continue to hold it?
No.
Okay. Is it working? Hello,
Yes.
everybody. Hi, everyone. My name is Taryn Malwa, and I am the new-ish manager of the Ute Pass and the Manitou Springs libraries. It is National Library Week next week, so we just ask that this lovely proclamation be read in honor of it. We love being part of the community. Thank you so much. Everyone's always so accepting, and it's such a busy little library. So thank you.
Well, we love that little library. Margaret and I actually went to first grade in that little library a long time ago.
School opened.
And so it means a lot to us, and we're very glad you're here. So without further ado, I'll read this proclamation. So this is the proclamation recognizing National Library Week, which is April 3rd through 9th, 2022. Whereas public libraries are accessible and inclusive places that foster a sense of connection and build community, whereas libraries connect people to technology, providing access to broadband internet, computers, and training that are critical for accessing education and employment opportunities, whereas libraries offer opportunities for everyone to connect with new ideas and become their best selves through access to multimedia content, programs, and classes, in addition to books. Whereas today's libraries
and their services extend far beyond the four walls of a building, and everyone is welcome to use their resources. Whereas in times of crisis, libraries and library professionals play an invaluable role in supporting their communities, both in person and virtually. Whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equity of access for all. Whereas to adapt to our changing world, libraries are expanding their resources and continuing to meet the needs of their patrons. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions for all members of the community, including veterans, active service military and their families, small business owners, community organizations, and churches, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. Whereas libraries are cornerstones of democracy, promoting the free exchange of information and ideas for all. Whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers are joining library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Green Mountain Falls Board of Trustees proclaim National Library Week April 3rd through 9th, 2022. During this week, we encourage all residents to connect with the Pikes Peak Library District by visiting online or in person to access resources and services. Done this 5th day of April, 2022 in Green Mountain Falls.
Magnify the word.
Right? I wore the big glasses. Thank you. It's always fun to have a proclamation, and especially for something that's as really important as the library district.
We'll have all the trustees sign it, and I'll put it on the website in a proclamations section, so it's there. Thank you.
So the next in our proclamation day is the proclamation of El Paso County Child Abuse Prevention Month. And Stacy Quitick-Russell, Department of Human Services Executive Director, or are you Christina at UDC?
I'm Christina. I'm the Public Information Officer at DHS. Stacy sends her regards. It's very sad she couldn't make it up here. She's really looking forward to meeting everyone, and unfortunately, I managed to double book her.
Oh, darn.
But thank you for this opportunity to talk about Child Abuse Prevention Month. It really is a chance for us to highlight all the incredible work that not only is done by social service staff, but all the others in the community that we partner with. Because when it comes to preventing child abuse and neglect, it really does take everyone, because anyone can call the hotline when they're concerned about a family or about a child. That hotline is 1-844-CO4-KIDS. And we don't expect everyone to know what child abuse and neglect looks like, but you know, everyone knows when something's not quite right, or when they're worried about a kiddo and their families. And so we just want to take this opportunity to highlight all the ways that people can help support others in the community, help support families, because a family that has supports and has strengths is a lot less likely to have to deal with child abuse and neglect. So if you have any questions about what child abuse and neglect looks like in terms of data, I can speak to that, or if you have any other questions.
Gordon, do you have any questions? Seeing none, we're going to read this proclamation.
I did bring pins for Child Abuse Prevention Month, as well as resource cards and pinwheels, and I'll leave those outside in the hallway.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Thank
you so much. So this is the proclamation recognizing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas finding solutions for child abuse and neglect, a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, requires input and action from everyone, because the well-being of our children today will shape the future of Colorado and our community. And whereas childhood trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse and neglect. And whereas all parents and caregivers need support sometimes, and supporting all children and families early is far less costly to society and individuals than healing from trauma. And whereas community leaders, policymakers, and elected officials play a unique role in building a community for kids by understanding the programs and policies that support child maltreatment prevention, listening to parents' needs, and examining community planning through the lens to build healthy communities. And whereas effective prevention efforts succeed because of partnerships created among human service agencies, public health, the district attorney's office, schools, faith and civic organizations, the medical community, law enforcement and first responder agencies, the business community, nonprofits and concerned citizens, and whereas everyone plays a role in preventing child abuse and neglect, helping to build thriving communities so that families and children may also thrive. Now therefore, the town of Green Mountain Falls Board of Trustees hereby proclaims April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the town of Green Mountain Falls. No matter where you live, everyone has the power to contribute towards a brighter tomorrow for all children. Done this 5th day of April, 2022 in Green Mountain Falls. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And again, thank you for all of your hard work. Library, thank you for your hard work. It's important things.
Sorry, I was actually going to speak over us. Can we possibly get a picture at some point? I don't know when would be appropriate.
Whenever you want. We're so freewheeling.
I don't know. I planted when I was at the mic. I'm so sorry.
We should do it now.
Now would be best.
Let's do it now.
It's a long meeting, perhaps.
Thank you. Sorry.
Especially because she has to read all the contracts too.
Right? That's a lot of pages. That's a whole lot of pages.
You want me to take
That would be
with the
amazing.
board?
Yes,
or-
please, if you would.
Do you have a device you want to use?
Do you want yours?
Yeah, mine's fine.
Do you want to stand behind the board table? That's fine.
Yeah. Yes.
Cindy, come over this way.
Go ahead, yours.
Preschool teacher. So you always have the pendants.
Table's right on.
Yeah, I'm trying to be really tall.
Sorry, I like to do, you know.
Oh, it moves issues in case I'm crying.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, sign, one letter. All right, moving right along. Item 6 is Pikes Peak Regional Building Department Advisory Board member. Becky, did you want to give a little background on this, on number 6?
I can.
Right.
I just received an email from Pikes Peak Regional just about this fact that Chris Quinn has been the representative on the PPRBD advisory board, and so because his term is ending, there needs to be a replacement, and so we weren't sure if you wanted to tackle that now or wait until the new board is seated, if there's any person that's remaining that's really gung-ho, you could go that direction, or you could
My personal opinion too is that we should probably defer.
Board that is going to need appointments to it, so I think the new board needs to decide where their heart is, in what area, because there will be a number of positions that will need to be filled.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion, yes.
Okay.
Is there a
Follow
second?
your heart.
Follow your heart. It's going to tell you what to do.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of tabling this item, please please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Just like that. Item 7, co-swap grant request for 12 more weeks in 2023. Nate, that's probably you again.
Yes. So we received notification upon the granting or the award of the grant, excuse me. And as part of that notification, it was mentioned that we needed to do an initial site review with the Mile High Youth Corps crew managers. And they also recommended that we get a forester on board for that initial site meeting so that the prescription for the area that was awarded is basically verified, by a professional forester to make sure we're on the right track with the work that's being done or planned to be done. The other part to that was that they did mention that upon that site visit, if there is a need to increase or change the timeline or increase the number of weeks requested, that there would be an opportunity to do that as well. So there's the list there of all the people that walked the site that day. And it was, there's just a consensus that the work will take all of that 12 weeks, and that even priority area number 1 could potentially use 2 full seasons of the Mile High Youth Corps work. So the way the Mile High Youth Corps schedules their crews, they do a full 12-week summer season, they do an 8-week fall season, and this grant goes through 2023. So they did suggest that if we wanted to ask for another season, basically to help fill up their schedule without breaking up seasons and things like that, making logistics tough for them, that we could perhaps request another, either the 8-week or the 12-week season. The 8-week season is September and October, and we felt that weather could potentially be problematic during that time. And we all agreed that we might as well go ahead and ask for another 12 weeks next summer. So it wouldn't be a 12-week add-on to this 12 weeks that's coming up. It would basically be the same schedule next summer and continuing on the work that they're starting this year. And then, we talked about, obviously we wanted want and need the board input, and basically I communicated with the DNR that as far as town staff goes and the fire mitigation committee, we would like to ask for that 12 weeks next summer, but that it's contingent on board approval. So that's where we are tonight.
So my question is, how does this affect the original grant application? Do you have to modify the grant in any way? Or would this, because I see the original email with the award notification, not necessarily the official award notification, then I see the other email that you requested the 12 weeks back, or 12 weeks additional. Have we heard from them yet?
It's kind of a concurrent process. They were going to start discussing that within their decision-making board that they have. And so basically my email was a notification that yes, we hope to formally request the 12 weeks pending board approval. I'm not sure the exact modification that needs to be done, but I just said, I'll keep you posted after the board meeting and let you know if the board approves this request or not. She didn't really give me a hint as to, what their decision would be. It sounded, I don't know, potentially promising. She was not, she wasn't negative at all about it, but yeah. And then the, she did request a lengthy, a full list of the reasons why that, we're essentially asking for double of the award. So they wanted some significant rationale for that. So that's what this list is there. The steep slope, the limited access to the site, complicating logistics. The grant does want as much fuel out as possible rather than just simply lop and scatter. So the crews are going to spend time on that. And because of the slope and the high number of dead trees, it's dangerous cutting. So that takes a lot more planning and care. And there's a lot of it up there. And so we all felt like, the more, the better. If we can get that for another season, then, that's great. But
And if for some reason they don't approve that additional request, will we be able to get into the next funding cycle to just replicate what we've already requested as well? Do we know, are we familiar with what their funding cycles and their grant cycles are?
I'm not exactly sure of that piece.
Okay.
I mean, this grant cycle ends on that 2023 date, December 2023. So I don't know if there's going to be another version of this grant, or
Okay.
I don't know if you have more information.
Just a little bit, there was some legislature being looked at to sort of streamline all these grants that are fire mitigation oriented. Time will tell what ends up being determined at that level, and then how it flows out. But between this particular program and the FIR1 programs, there's obviously a lot of awareness that's occurring right now as a result of the fires that we've had. Therefore, a lot of resources being pushed that way. And right now they're looking at really how to streamline a lot of that.
But if we were to approve this tonight, in no way jeopardizes what we already have in place, right? Okay.
Correct. And I should mention that we are working with CUSP as well, and there's no threat of not having enough work for both groups. CUSP is flexible, and they had initially, before this grant came up, they were planning on working on this 10-acre parcel. But then the Fire Mitigation Committee identified this 10 and this 16.5 as the priority area number 1 for co-swap. So we did that. So now CUSP is shifting their focus west. The blue area there is the recent CUSP work. And then so they're going to focus, first of all, to the west, downslope from Thomas Trail. And there's, obviously the other upslope from their recent work, and upslope from, within that 11 acres. And then also across Catamount Creek there's some potential as well, just to basically continue the parcel to the north of that 4 acres is what is the historic Green Mountain Falls just purchased. But beyond that is the Catamount Bratton intersection, where work could potentially be done as well on town property. So we're all coordinating together, and if this is approved, then we will continue to do that so that there's not conflict between grant funding and work crews and all that stuff.
All right, board, do you have any further questions? I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we move to approve the request for the 12 additional weeks.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And I will say, you cannot get too much information out to let people know what's going on. We have a whole feeling of fear about fire and fire mitigation. So if we can just keep pumping this information out that the town's working on it, that would be great.
And we'll talk a little bit more later about the Sally Bush meeting that we're scheduling. But I did send out already a letter, and I've received a couple of responses, but I made a list of adjacent property owners to this work area, sent out a letter, basically notifying them of the project and requesting feedback in terms of, do you have a flat space that crews could stage? Do you want to talk to me directly about your concerns? So that's moving along right now. And so I'll schedule more meetings and contacts with property owners in that area to establish safe access points and things like that. So yeah, it's moving along well.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Item 8, EIAF Grant Comprehensive Road Plan Bid Award and Professional Services Agreement. As we know, we have received a grant to have a comprehensive road plan. Becky, do you want to give us more information on that?
Absolutely. So this project went out to bid. We did receive one bid that was within the budget amount and had all the required components. You have a copy of that bid proposal in your packets, as well as a professional services agreement. There's a typo in my memo there. It should say professional services agreement rather than contract, for the amount of $103 or $103,000, and I should have put that on the memo. It is, and $100, as well as a copy of the proposed professional services agreement. If it pleases the board, to award this bid to Wilson and Company and authorize the mayor's signature on the contract in that amount, pending the submission of documents required by that professional services agreement, which is really only a certificate of insurance.
Becky, just give a brief synopsis of what this hopes to accomplish for the people who are here.
This is a really fantastic project. I was very pleased to learn that the town was in the process of going for this type of an award. So with this project, the contractor will complete a comprehensive roads plan, which will outline a lot of the issues that the town has with the existing dirt roads, as well as some needed improvements, and really help us to prioritize projects, as well as put a price tag to them. Some of these projects we'll be able to do in-house with our own public works department. Others may be larger, where we will need to pursue some grant funding or capital improvements to be able to complete them. But this plan will help us it'll be our roadmap, so to speak, for the roads, and allow us to know kind of what we can expect each of the projects to potentially cost.
All right, board, do you have any questions about this? Mr. Bracken is also here. If you have, sorry, Andre, I just recognize you out there. If anyone has any questions about this contract. We'll see.
I think we've talked about it.
We've talked about it a lot. This is an extremely important plan that we have been trying to accomplish for literally decades, because our roads are, we really have just been applying Band-Aids without a plan for a long, long time. So with that, I would like to move that we approve this and award the bid.
A second.
With no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Item 9, CDBG grant. This is the improvements to the gazebo lake, which again, we've talked about quite a bit. This is the bid award and contract authorization. Becky, again, do you want to give a brief synopsis of what's going on here?
Sure, absolutely. So this project, again, received a bid that was within budget and has the required components to be able to complete the project successfully. Those details are also included in the contract on this one, reviewed by our legal team. And with this project, if you choose to award the bid tonight to the contractor, it would be Water on Mars Incorporated in the amount of $138,550, and again contingent upon the submission of required contract documents. These being slightly more required because it is a contract rather than a professional services agreement.
So as you may remember, this does include the lake wall reconstruction, which is demolition and removal of the concrete wall that needs help, an installation of an ADA compliant fishing pier, installation of the outlet stream, which I must say has been my dream and my baby for years to see that get done, and installation of ADA compliant pathway. For a long time now, we've really talked about how we make this lake and this project accessible for everybody who lives up here. And this is just really going to help to make that happen. As far as the outlet goes, it's going to make it so that it is a more natural outflow. It's more self-regulating, and we won't have the periodic, we're about to flood and I better get down there and clean out the gate, as I do pretty much after every rainstorm. I'm kind of done really with hauling dead fish out of there by hand. So I'm happy to see this get done. So I would, oh, and the fishing pier, which I really pushed a lot, and now thanks to Catherine, it's going to come to reality. So I would like to move approval of the award of this contract.
I would second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. I'll probably still be digging dead fish out. I don't know. Maybe it's a hobby. Let's see. Item 10, CUSP Fire Mitigation Cost Share Agreement. Nate, is that you again?
I'll take this one.
Alrighty then.
So this is the money that was allocated for 2022, or reallocated from 2021 to 2022 for the work that CUSP was to do for fire mitigation. They were unable to do it last year because of a lack of SWIFT crews, and so this cost share agreement has been modified, updated for this year. Nothing really different in that other than they will be using, in addition to the SWIFT crews, the crew out in Lake George as well.
All right, board, do you have any questions? Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we approve the cost share agreement. I know, what?
You're sharing tonight. We're
I
sharing
know.
people.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we approve the cost share agreement.
And I'll second that motion.
And if there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
The motion passes. I can't wait to see what that agreement looks like and get that show on the road too. Item 11, Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority, PPRTA bylaws, CAC membership, and PPRTA 3 presentation. I've had this, I told you, electronics and me today are not a thing.
No, I think I just went too far here or something. I did. But,
It's on page,
yeah, was it 90?
92 is by, there's only 122 pages.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the CAC membership is rearing its head again, but this is all information from Craig Gooding. He couldn't be here tonight. He had a conflict, but the first issue, he's basically asking for feedback on a couple of issues. Excuse me. The first is PPRTA bylaw edition. Just quoted here. I don't know a whole lot about this, but basically it's a way to get funding for member governments that will help if they're, it's a method that will help, I think, if they're up against the Tabor limit for themselves. And so anyway, I included it all in the packet. Again, it's kind of straight from Craig. I don't fully understand it. But his text is just basically asking for for direction, if you wish, to give him such direction on how to whether or not to approve that addition to the bylaws. Yes, that was the grant subject. The second issue, again, is the CAC, and the summary, again, here says the current makeup of the CAC is reflected here. It says here that the makeup of the CAC membership, which was presented to the trustees on March 1st, has been returned to the PPRTA board for a third time. The CAC has recommended twice that Manitou Springs have one representative, and the CAC, the same as at the CAC, the same as Green Mountain Falls, Raymond, and Calhoun. In March, the PPRTA board voted to give Manitou 2 seats despite those votes, and the board is asking the CAC now to basically agree with their vote instead of, whatever you voted for before. So.
And I'm happy to say, reading this, they approved my suggestion for the numbers that make sense.
For the odd number.
The third option that wasn't there at all. That was
Right.
the one they approved after we presented that option. So yay, see, numbers need to make sense.
Right. So anyway, if you had any feedback, he was just requesting any action if you so desire. He wasn't really pressing it, but wanted to make you aware of these and, asking for that feedback if you desire. I don't know if Ann has any comment as a.
You can comment.
Well, when there were 2, I was one of them. And, but I could be an at-large member. And, because I think it's great that Craig, but I think maybe you have to appoint him tonight as your member. I'm not positive.
So this is what, I think there's several issues at play here, and this is what I get from the last PPRTA meeting. The PPRTA board, besides this board, approved exactly what we said. Look at Green Mountain Falls, with giving Manitou 2 members and adding another at-large member. That way there wasn't any division of all the small towns get 3/4 of a point or something. So it made 21 instead of 22, or instead of 20. And I would say that we probably are going to stick with what we said last time. Manitou can have 2, but we need another at-large. Additionally, I think we just need to confirm for the record that we've appointed Craig Gooding and that Ann Esch is the alternate, because that's what we voted on last time. But I think that they just wanted us to, again, confirm that officially.
I think one thing, Jane, if I could interrupt, they have a committee from the CAC that makes a recommendation for the at-large people to the board. And I talked to Rick Sonnenberg, we're in touch, and I've already applied for that when this was happening. We knew it was going to happen. So I don't know whether I'll have to go down and get interviewed again or what. But the other thing that I kind of hung it up, because the last time they voted, I abstained and it made it a tie vote. And that's why it went up. But Rick told me yesterday that tomorrow I can vote again, so I will vote, for what you all have asked for. And that should at least solve that problem. It might not solve the at-large one, but it would solve the other stuff. Does that make sense? So, then Craig will be your official representative, and I would just be at large, but I live in the mountains, which is good, so.
That's the only clarification I want is what's the definition of the grant?
The grants?
To apply for grants, I mean, is it just any grant in general, and we just have to say, yeah, it's okay with us, or?
Part of what they're trying to get people to hear through UPRTA for another years.
Right.
And they want to start helping all of us to apply for grants. Use their.
Okay, so we're looking at another resource
Yeah,
option.
and so I've been looking at that too, because they've got grant stuff.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, I can't see that would be a problem.
So, I don't know.
I think that would make sense.
Here's the text of that.
Yeah.
Well, and it would help if they were a joint sponsor.
We have to renew this one. That's gonna come up for a vote for everybody.
And they would administer the funding. That's right.
Who's considered the local government? Is that
So
PPRTA?
no,
or is
we're
that
all local governments.
Because it's saying the local government would be responsible for all work for the project. The PPRTA would administer the funding.
So in other words, we would contract with
Whoever.
Mr. X,
Okay.
and then they would just do the paperwork on the funding portion.
So they would do the reporting, they would do the making sure deadlines are met, they would do all of that.
And they have done.
Because I don't want it to add an additional burden to us,
It would.
knowing how crazy grant management is.
The PPRTA funds are the grant management. It's already kind of set up as grant management. There's reports that are due, there's financials that are due. And it's,
Regardless.
right, and it's not, I don't think it's terribly burdensome.
Okay,
Nate and I share that burden.
okay.
If they can help you get more money. Well,
Absolutely.
I think that's what they're hoping.
Only because I had a grant meeting today, figuring out what's going, so it's on my mind.
And I think that there'll be another opportunity to learn more about this. Rick's offered to come up and do orientation with new board members.
Which is super valuable. Catherine and I both did that, and you really learn a whole lot. He knows everything about.
When I went
All
on
this.
CAC, I remember Jerry was still alive, and we went down there, and Rick Sonnenberg talked to me for 2 hours, explaining all this stuff. And finally, Jerry came up, somebody showed him where to go and said, "Aren't you through yet?" And I didn't understand half of what he said, but it's a requirement to teach you, and I think that's okay.
Well, I felt like I learned a lot from him, and so I'm glad to see him teach that.
Yeah, and I've learned over time, which is good. I've learned you can pretty much say what you want to.
That's true. And we usually do. So the board action that's being requested of us, let me see if I can summarize this for all of us and jump in if I'm wrong. We want to give direction to Mr. Gooding that we liked how our voting was in the first place, with 2 for Manitou and an extra at large. For the total of 21. That we want to reappoint Mr. Gooding with Ann as an alternate, and if Ann can be at large, that's great. However, they need to work that out. And that we approve of this, what they're asking of us with the grant management and grant discussion. Is that everything? So somehow if you can make that a motion, because that's how we're doing an action here. And is there a second?
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 That passes. All right, reports, trustee reports. Catherine?
I don't have a report, but I just wanted to bring out that the contract for the lake project leaves us a little over $20,000 for equipment for the playground. And that and Nancy Dixon has generously offered to help with that, and not monetarily, but and you know, I think when we have a better idea what that plan looks like, then we'll know how much of that will go for equipment versus installation, and you know, what kinds of work maybe volunteers could do versus hiring. So, but that gives us some funds to work with.
I would like to suggest, if you're having a committee for the playground equipment, to add Donna Everly to that.
Yeah,
Because of her household and the special needs in her household, I think she would be a valuable resource for the type of equipment.
Yeah, I consulted with her but before we submitted the grant, and some of the things that they're interested in, we probably wouldn't put at that location. But you know, some of this equipment we're hoping will be added to other areas of our parks.
Well, that's terrific. I would add that Colorado Springs Utilities has an employee program that they come up and will help do things like spread mulch and grass seed and whatever, because that's how we got it done in the original play park at the lake. So make sure and reach out to utilities as well, because that's a good volunteer program. Margaret?
I get to talk. I don't necessarily have a report, except for Rock Day is coming along. We're really pleased with that. And we decided on our theme, it's going to be Thank You Firefighters, to commemorate 10 years since Waldo Canyon. So Western thank you will be the theme. And first responders, yes. Yes, just anyone and everyone who's there for us. And we do have our Grand Marshal. And it's not a surprise at this time, but Virgil is going to be the Grand Marshal this year. The Marshal's the Grand Marshal, so we're honored that he accepted. So not necessarily trustee information, but just general community information.
So excited for that. Cindy, do you have a report?
I do not.
All right. Nate?
Do you want to do that first?
Go ahead.
Unless it's easier.
Oh. Moving right along. Not a ton since last meeting, but we went over some of the co-swap. It's taken up a lot of my time lately, but that'll be a good project to get started on. Like I mentioned, I will be contacting the homeowners around that area, looking for strategic access points, walking the land again with Mike Martin, who lives up there, and just getting some stakes and defining the area very well, so that when the crews start, there won't be any confusion on the area boundaries. Kelly Hunter, who's the new member of the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee, lives directly at the top of Foster, and she has a nice flat area. She's already volunteered to have a good access point for hauling down fuel, and that'll be a good starting point. Gazebo rentals definitely picking up. The calendar's filling up, so if you know any friends that are wanting to get on there, they better hurry. Planning applications, an easement, that's an interesting development for a single-family addition on Pine Street. That'll be going to Planning Commission next week. And I've had conversations with our attorney, and we think that this easement method is a better way of handling encroachments than revocable permits have kind of been heavy, it seems like, the last couple of years. And we think we may even want to convert some of those revocable permits to easements, because it's a more permanent recorded document situation that helps with future sales, by having that document attached to the title searches. But they're not they're not guaranteed. They still come to Planning Commission and to the board for approval. But I think it's definitely a better way to go in the long run. So there'll be that, kind of our first test case, I guess, if you will, for that.
I'm sorry,
Mhm.
is that going to entail anything in the code rewrite that's happening? Is that going to be something that maybe needs to be reviewed now prior to finalization?
We will, yeah, we'll definitely take a look and concentrate on that. I know Todd Dixon has been very vocal about wanting and realizing the need for, as planning chair, to have a method to help people do simple improvements. But there's a lot of properties that are right up against right of way. Some of that right of way is used, some of it is undeveloped, some of it is right of way but not functionally really right of way. So if there's a way that on a case by case basis the board can,
There's an alley going to my house, but yeah.
right, exactly. So we think that the easement is going to be a way to help people do improvements without, carrying a huge burden of the revocable permit administration, basically. So stay tuned for that. That'll be at the next board meeting. I assume it will be on the next board meeting for approval. The other vacation lot line, pretty simple thing there. New address. So there's a new CSU is putting a new pump station on Hondo, which is going to replace the existing pump station that's over on like Pine and Mountain Avenue, that area where there's kind of that steep hill that goes down into the Pine and Spruce area. That pump station is outdated, so they're planning a new one. And it's about halfway between Howard and Colorado on Hondo on the left. There's a lot there that is owned by the neighbors who have a cabin that's actually off of Colorado. But there's that lot that has steps up to that cabin. They've come to an agreement with CSU to develop that pump station on that extra lot that they have. All this will be coming through Planning Commission, and there'll be variances and all kinds of things going on there. But it looks like it's going to be a pretty. I mean, it's fairly close to the road there, but I think it'll be a fairly non-invasive building. So, but just a heads up, that'll be coming to you. I assigned the address as kind of the first step for all the permitting and all the things that need to happen. Code updates. We received final draft of installment 1 of 3. There's just been some delays on that for various personal reasons, I guess I'll just say. And we expect to receive the installments 2 and 3, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. So we just need to figure out a timeline and how that's going to work logistically with Planning Commission losing 2 members going to the board, and it could very well be delayed just because of all the logistics, all the public hearings that need to happen, and not to mention we haven't received the final drafts yet, and there's going to be a lot of review and a lot of questions and all that. So we are working through that. And that's about all I have.
Do you have any report for fire mitigation committee other than what we talked about already with Coach Law?
No, and we talked about, I don't know how often we'll have 2 meetings per month, but Becky and I were talking about having kind of an alternating situation where we have like ask for committee reports one meeting and then staff reports the other, because really 2 weeks, it's not a whole lot. There could be, but it's a lot of turnaround, or not a lot of work, but it's a quick turnaround for a full staff report sometimes. But obviously, if there's big things that come up, we can do that. But trying to get into a rotation, and I think we'll be talking about reports during the orientation coming up. So we'll try to get everyone on the same page and the same schedule regarding that.
Sure, that makes sense. Becky?
Excellent, thanks. So I, outside of my, who have we got there? Oh, no, not that one yet. Outside of my written report to you, just a couple of updates since that was prepared last week. We did have our first inspection at the pool with USA Pools Management today. It's going to need a little bit of work, but he's kind of putting together a list of what needs to happen and some next steps so that we're better prepared for opening day. In addition to that, wanted to thank Public Works for their assistance down there, as well as their support with the Black Hills Energy. Today there was a tree that blew down, and thanks to Marshall as well for popping up there. Tree blew down, popped the gas line, nearly missed the transformer. All is well. It was resolved quite quickly, but my suspicion is that it might have had something to do with our power blips earlier in the day. So outside of that, wanted to spend a couple of minutes of your time with getting you ready for the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority 3 ballot language. This is not something that we do have a deadline on here that at least preparing you for revisiting that prior to the April 26th deadline will move things along smoothly. So we did put together a little bit of a presentation. Nate, can you pull that up? And I've asked for the assistant co-presenter this evening, Mr. Andre Braken.
Oh, good.
Oh. So he does get to talk.
After all.
So wonderful.
Is that blue light still on?
It is.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, good evening, Mayor and trustees and ladies and gentlemen. It's sure nice to see lots of really neat things going on in town. A lot of things happening. And Becky asked me to talk a little bit, I guess, first about the history of the RTA. So, I don't have any facts and figures here, so I'm just kind of going off memory. It first started getting talked about probably in 2002 or 3, when then County Administrator Terry Harris pulled a group of us together and started talking about this state legislation called RTA, or Rural Transportation Authority, sales tax funded type of authority. And the idea is that, so within cities, there's certain ways to get streets built. You have developers come in and build subdivisions, and they're responsible for building everything within their ownership of the subdivision boundary. You have federal aid funds and other types of funding out there from federal government and some from the state that builds the bigger highways. It recognizes there's kind of a gap between the construction and the building of transportation infrastructure for municipalities and the large interstate freeway systems. That gap basically is what existed in this county as basically ranch to town roads. The roads were basically forgotten and carried heavy amounts of traffic without any really defined funding source other than counties which really were only set up to maintain what they had. So that's what the RTA really does. In time, the RTA, what became the Pikes Peak RTA, and Green Mountain Falls was an early member of that. We developed it as it had a capital component and a maintenance component. Very important to understand, and that the definition of those has long been one of the, I would say argument points, but the RTA continues to redefine what maintenance means and what capital projects means, so that they know that they're providing the citizens what the citizens voted on each time. So the first time around, there was a list of capital projects, and there was so many of these from the member governments that they were divided into priorities. A priority, an A list, a B list, and then the C list. Most of these were on the A list and the B list. So that was all the capital side. The maintenance side really is a different pot of funds, different color money, so to speak, that really just addresses basically rehabilitation, what it really is. It's not routine maintenance. Cities and towns and counties have their equipment and their people do routine maintenance, but it's the bigger kind of maintenance projects like overlays. You just overlaid Belvedere Avenue recently. It's those type projects that the RTA maintenance money is kind of focused at. But it's really the capital program that has the big focus and gets voted on. So this will be the third round, basically, of the Pikes Peak RTA for voting on a list of.
I guess it wasn't on. Hopefully, I'm talking louder.
You're good.
So this will be the third round for the vote for capital projects. And so I guess that's about all the history I can really give you. That's the kind of the general idea. The management, I think, has been very exceptional over the years. The guys down there, Rick Sonnenberg, and others, I think have done just an excellent job. And it's really a program that I think any other metropolitan organization, either inside or outside of Colorado, could look at as a model for how to do this. I really think that over time that the organization can show the citizens that we have a method of making this happen just the way you voted and to meet your expectations. And that's always been number one with the RTA. Any questions on that?
So here's just a quick slide of example of some of the work that was done with that PPRTA money. It is based on the last census count, so ours is on 2020 census. This particular one runs through 2024. And of course, any of those allocations are subject to that voter approval. Our A-list projects that have been complete or that are in progress, or that Belvedere Avenue widening. And these are our capital projects. And then the progress ends up being our Stilling Basins project. And I asked Andre here to give a little bit of an update on the Stilling Basins project.
So that the design is complete. You had hired us to basically do a couple different things. And I should mention that the drainage analysis that we did for the town was critical in order to be able to go to preliminary and final design on the Stilling Basin. So this was one of your A category PPRTA projects from way back from the initial 2004 vote. And we had a little bit of trouble over the years with what, again, it was on the ballot. So what does Stilling Basin really mean? We want to make sure that we're giving citizens being true on what a Stilling Basin does. And essentially, in how it applies to for the town and the project here is it's a water quality pond. And the purpose of it is to not solve all the issues for the gazebo lake, but to reduce the amount of sediment and that material getting into the lake through that several different locations. And that's what the drainage study did for us, is to tell us where we could locate a stilling basin and get the maximum value out of it. We had 2 locations picked out. One of the locations didn't pan out because there was a fairly substantial septic system there for businesses in the town. We worked a little bit with El Paso County Health Department looking at that, and concluded that to also place a stilling basin in that location would just be, the cost wouldn't make sense. So we continued on with the other location, which is there at near the intersection of UPass and Park Avenue Street there. So we've completed final design. We've ran into some water line issues and conflicts with where we wanted to put storm drains. And so we worked with CSU Water and located those, got the pothole equipment out here, potholed, and determined exactly where that was, adjusted our plans, and now we're ready to advertise the project for construction. The cost on this thing, we have done estimates, but with inflation, I'm concerned about what it's going to come in at. I don't think there's any worry at all that the money, that you're going to have lots of leftover money in your PPRTA budget line. I think we'll probably end up using most of that, if not all of that, just to construct this one stilling basin. With that, I don't want to talk much more about it unless you have questions.
Board, anything?
Can you give us an idea of the timeline for this project? Like how long it will take once it's
The
started?
construction itself, good question. It should take about 2 months. One item that taking the trees down, that's going to be a very careful thing to do. I'm not really sure how long that'll take, but we'll have to do that, as well as probably address, I think there might be an overhead line there we might have to prop up there. So that there's some prep before we actually get up there and start digging do the excavation.
There's a goose grave up there. At least one. Two, yeah.
Oh, now you tell me. So we have some relocations to do.
We may have a grave relocation.
Okay. I think we can handle that.
All right, I trust you.
We moved a whole cemetery at the intersection of Woodman Road and Powers. Way back when, so that can be done.
Yep, I trust you to move Roy and other Roy.
Well, I will need someone to tell me exactly where it is.
I think we can actually do that. That's what's sad and true.
So yeah, probably a couple of good months to get, from start to finish.
And is this coordinated with the lake project? Or is it something that's, I don't know how they overlap.
We
or if
will
they do.
definitely coordinate those schedules. I know the contractor of Lake Project pretty well, and we'll work together and figure that out.
Great, thanks.
Wonderful. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
PPRTA has been part of our lives for a really long time, and I don't even know if people realize how much it does help support our budget and how much it has helped us with projects that in the past, before PPRTA, we just didn't even really have an idea of how we were going to do things like resurface the roads. Stilling basins have been a really long time coming, but it's been a serious plan that we've wanted for a long time. So I hope that there's good support for this in the next election where this comes up.
Wonderful. And just one last point on that, they will be developing some ballot language. This is just a snip of the information that was submitted to PPRTA on your April 3rd, 2021 board meeting. It's likely that this list will bounce back and forth between this board and the PPRTA board a couple of times prior to that occurring. Just wanted to get it revisit it a tiny bit.
All right, board, any questions? Nope. Good things coming. All right, Becky, did you have any more staff report?
No, a lot of it's just gonna, follow up on other pieces that we've been working on, as well as putting together contracts, unless anybody has any specific questions for me in case something slipped my mind.
I have a couple.
Okay.
You'd indicated on here that parking is in progress. Where are we with that right now? Because I know we had decided May through September. So are they able to accommodate that?
So we are currently kind of revisiting that with some negotiations. There were some concerns that from the parking company that they did not make as much as they had hoped to with the split. There were a couple of things that were considered, such as the inclusion of additional parking spaces. There should be up to, I think, 60 additional parking spaces available this year with the inclusion of the green box spaces. So we sat down, had a conversation, or, Jesse and I, Jesse Stroop and I talked to the parking management team again. They took into consideration those things, and they're going to be corresponding here shortly. I'll follow up. Thanks, I appreciate that.
Okay, and the second part of that, which it's kind of tandem with it, is where are we at with Catamount? Because I know that was part of what affected last year as well, because of the timing for that trail needing to be closed.
Absolutely. So Jesse is still in the process of drafting the MOU with the town. Once that occurs, it'll be very quick.
So just a quick run through legal and presentation. Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Virgil, do you have a report?
Just actually what's up there. We are losing another reserve deputy. Pete Peterson has taken a job in Outback, South Dakota. I can't even think of the town. It's right near Rapid City. So we will be losing him. We had 0 reserve hours this past month, partially because of that, partially because of some business commitments on the behalf of the other reserve. And with Deputy Goings being part-time deputy, his time was included with mine. Kind of off the cuff, I'd like to say how honored I am to the Bronc Day Committee and the UPass Chamber for being the Grand Marshal this year. If I could figure out one more Marshal, I guess it can be Marshal. That's it. That's all I've got.
All right. Do we have any committee reports? Nothing, Todd? You guys got it covered? All right. Correspondence. There is the family leave opt-out update. Becky, do you want to just summarize that?
Absolutely. So this is just something that was pushed through or brought to our attention from our legal team. There will be a potential opt-out process that is available for you for the Paid Family and Medical Leave Act. There is a very hard deadline of June 2022 to be able to opt out should we want to. It's something that, really wanted to be able to have a little bit more opportunity to reach out to other jurisdictions to find out what their take is on it and why they may be doing so. But, according to the lawyer or our legal team, the main justification for opting out is the cost, both directly toward the premiums and the administrative costs for managing the employees under the new scheme. So we'll be reaching out to our partnering communities to see what they're doing and their justification before bringing it back to the board for decision.
I'm sure CML will have a white paper on that too, as they do. GMF Community Potluck, that's going to be May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. So everybody plan on coming to that. That's to thank our volunteers and our community and our employees and everybody who wants to come and have chili and whatever else. So more information to come on that. Fire mitigation informational town hall meeting at Sally Bush. Nate, you said you had an update on that?
Yeah, just that I reached out to, well, I sent the email you all saw, but I did get some feedback from Adrian at Cusp. He's willing to set up a table basically and have some information on the programs that they do. So residents can ask about how to get in their loop with mitigation assessments and perhaps be eligible for some of that grant funding that's specific to private properties. But I will continue to reach out to, I know, to FMAC members or other partners. We talked a little bit to the Mile High Youth Corps, CJ and Olympia, and so maybe one of them will perhaps say a few words. I'll ask David Paletti, the forester, if he's available. If not, I'm pretty well versed on everything that's going on. So we did receive a updated prescription from David, and so just been educating myself about all that stuff. But if nothing else, I can provide most, if not all, that information. But I will try to get some partners to get up and say a few words. We just need to figure out the logistics of the room and the audio and whether or not it makes, I mean, I'd like to stream it, via YouTube, I think would probably be the easiest. But we need to figure out the audio. So maybe we can talk offline, or I can talk offline to someone more familiar with that building and figure out the possibilities there for audio amplification. That is the main concern, I think, for me.
Well, and let's kill it with advertising for this, to posters and whatever, so no one can say they didn't know, as much as we can. And let's see, resolution 2022-05, PTO payout update. Did you want to go over the update briefly?
Sure, yeah. So after that motion at the last meeting was basically to approve the change to the handbook, which is to pay out the accrued hours. And based on the information I received from the Colorado Department of Labor, because our PTO is one bank of accrued hours, that we do need to pay out those hours. We can set that limit to say not above that annual, whatever your annual accrual is, but we do have to pay that out. If we had separate banks for vacation, sick, bereavement, like Colorado Springs has all these different banks that they do. In that case, then you do only pay out vacation. But because ours is all one bank of accrual, then that's what we have to do. So.
All right, sounds good. So thank you for going over that. The item 14 is for persons present who are not on the agenda. If you would like to address the board, please approach, state your name. No one? Such shyness. Before
Kids are being too quiet.
the kids are too quiet. Before we head into executive session, because I assume some of you will probably leave, maybe not. I would just like to say that this is my last formal meeting. Unless something crazy comes up, this is my last meeting as mayor. And my last time on the board. And when you look back, I was on the board 11 years and I've been mayor for 6 years, which is my term limit. I just really want to thank everybody that I've served with over the years. It's always been a thoughtful group. I've appreciated that people didn't hesitate to disagree, because that's so important to not have yes people, but to have people who definitely speak their mind and have definite opinions. And we didn't always agree, but we never left angry. And I think that's extremely a good mark of a good board. Don't always have to agree. I really want to thank all our employees over the years. We've had an incredible group of employees. We've had some crazy ups and downs and learned things together that we never even knew we didn't know, because it was something else altogether. And I think everybody who's come and attended meetings and worked with the town and volunteered for the town. It's always great to have friendly and happy people. And it's always great to have people who don't hesitate to bring some conflict and some interesting things, because it makes you become, or at least me, it made me become a better person and a more thoughtful person, and just drove me to be a stronger person who could have some convictions. I didn't always do everything right, but I know I did everything the best that I could with the town first and foremost in my mind. And I just want to thank everybody for that. And, you know, I'm still around, I'm not dying, so there's that. So, thank you. I'll come and I'll say, oh no, when I was the mayor, that is not what happened when I was the mayor. But at this time, I'd like to move us into executive session. This is pursuant to CRS 246402F for the purpose of personnel matters, specifically to evaluate applications for the position of town marshal. Marshal Hodges was so good to stay with me, promised he would stay until I was done, and I appreciate it. But now we're going to evaluate another marshal. I'd like to ask that we move into executive session and that we invite both our town manager and our marshal in for discussion. That's a motion.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
If people want to stay, depending, who's going to stay? Anybody going to stay for after? Nate's going to stay. So if you're not going to stay, I'll ask you to leave and we'll just stay in this room. Otherwise, I'd make us all go in another room.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.